Rachel,
And I'm Amanda.
and this is episode 42 of Books and Bingos. This week, we'll be recommending books by Black authors and or representing Black characters. So, Amanda, obviously, I think it's more important now than ever to recommend diverse voices. And being February, Black voices are the key, although we should be reading diversely all year long. I have seen an interesting call online, and I hadn't really thought about this to promote debut authors as well, which is something I really hadn't thought about. But now that I do, I think it is going to be something I try to look at a little bit more.
Yeah, I've actually been following along in the discourse, like on Blue Sky and Threads, about the conversation happening with Amazon and a lot of people like leaving Kindle Unlimited, leaving Audible, and the indie authors or the debut authors are saying, but wait, like that's the only place we can be. We're not with a publisher. We self-publish or, are trying to get our name out there. So, I understand where that's coming from because honestly, we want to do something, we want to take a stand and, support all of our people. But when we do that, it's barely making any sort of whisper of a difference for Amazon, but it's making a big difference and an impact on our indie authors and people that are just debuting for the first time and having to self-publish. So just something to keep in mind is that we need to, yes, be always reading diversely. And I am going to try to be more intentional about newer authors, especially BIPOC characters and authors.
Yes, I think it's hard to constantly keep all these things in your mind as you're trying to look for books, but it is important. And like I think everybody is their heart's in the right place. Like we should try to buy from our local indie bookstores as much as possible. But like you mentioned, it's really hard for brand new authors, especially BIPOC authors, to get themselves on the shelves in a physical format all the time. So keeping in mind, we love indie bookstores. We also want to support up and coming authors as well. And it's just a really serious balancing act.
It very much is. And publishers have some work to do on all of that front as well.
Agreed. And I wish we could have more of that presence in like some of our online cultures. Like Goodreads, I know is attached to Amazon, so we can't expect that. But something like Goodreads, where we're seeing a lot more um, grassroots promoting of authors that are up and coming.
Right,
I think that would be nice to see in the future.
right. I agree. That would be a nice little to have like, oh, you liked this instead of giving me a suggestion of a book that's been on the bestseller list for 57 weeks. Like maybe you give me a suggestion of a newer title or a debut, things like that. So I agree with that.
Yes, totally. All right, Amanda, tell us about your first pick this week.
So my first pick is actually it's out of my comfort zone. I don't normally read literary fiction all that often. But I am obsessed with Percival Everett right now. If oh, what is the name? There's a movie that recently it was like American fiction that was recently adapted from his book. I think it was Telephone. And so he is kind of being able to be like is breaking out and everyone I've seen it everywhere. James, right? So if you've seen the cover James, it was probably like one of the most sold books of 2024. That is a reimagining of Huckleberry Finn from Jim's point of view. And I absolutely adored it. And so then I started to kind of pick up other titles by Percival Everett, including the book The Trees, which is what I'm going to be sharing about today. It's an adult book, first of all. That's what Percival writes. And it follows a series of brutal murders that have been happening in Mississippi when a pair of detectives arrive from the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation. Each crime scene has dead white men and one black body that resembles that of Emmett Till, who also died in Mississippi. The FBI detectives soon realize how deep the racism is in this town and come to the conclusion that these murders are an act of retribution. Upon closer inspection, they find that many of the same killings are happening or have happened all across the United States. And people haven't put these all together. So the past isn't as dead and buried as one might think. And like I said, Percival Everett has quickly become one of my favorite modern writers of American fiction. I think this book sheds so much light on racial injustice and makes the reader realize in the timeline of our country, slavery wasn't so long ago, and racism is far from dead. And I think we can all agree on that right now with the climate of our country and our nation. This novel definitely deserved all the acclaim and awards that it received. I found it to be sort of macabre, and because it does have a dark humor element to it. But I gave it to my dad to read. He also very much loves Percival Everett. And so we've had a lot of great conversations surrounding this book and many of his others. Content warnings for this would be death, murder, dismemberment, racism, lynching, white supremacy, racial slurs, hate crime, violence, gore, body horror, abuse, police brutality, injury, body shaming, religious bigotry, classism, forced institutionalization, alcoholism, addiction, grief, and child death. The squares would be black rep, black historical fiction slash nonfiction, mainly because it shares so much of our history and our nation. I feel like you could slide that one in if you were looking for one specifically for that.
But like this one sounds very interesting, so I'll have to definitely check this out. I'm not sure why my brain cannot take Percival Everett as like a name. I keep thinking that's the title of the book, and I'm like, his name is just James.
Oh, how funny.
No, no, no. I don't know why, but I love it. That's it's such an
Yeah,
interesting name. I love the way it looks on the book covers. I know that sounds weird,
for
but it's
sure.
just it's a cool name.
Yeah, it is a cool name. And he's like a professor at a university in, I think, California. And if you haven't seen the movie that one of his books was recently made into, it was it was hilarious and just very timely about our nation with what is happening and the stereotypes we have of certain ethnic groups and are still fighting against that racism piece. But yeah, as an English major in college, very much I read the classics, all of the classics, and Huckleberry Finn is 100% problematic. You have to look at though the time that it was written in. So I love that Percival was able to take that title and turn it on its head. So if you were ever thinking of, how Huckleberry Finn could be better now, then I would check that out.
And these are kind of the things I think would be so interesting in schools. Like, I know he's more of an adult author, but like to take these rewritings like this and pair them with the original, I think that would
Yes,
be such an amazing class to do to see the difference in perspective and just the changes. Like, there's a huge change in our culture. Just to be able to see the reflection of that in a rewriting of a book, I think that would be so cool.
I agree. I would love, I mean, yeah, I doubt that's happening in any high school other than
Wishful
maybe
thinking.
bigger cities or something like that. But yeah, definitely in a college course, I would love to do something like that because, like, even as an adult, I'm like, can I take it? Can I take that course credit? Because yeah, I find that we're finally kind of, I feel like Percival Everett, as a Black man living in America now, is able to kind of right the wrongs of a lot of books written by white authors at a time about BIPOC people and really kind of change and like put their own stamp on it and make it more authentic.
Yeah, and it just allows you as the reader to get such a different perspective on things, just a different lens, which is really important. That's what all diversity is about, just looking through a different lens that maybe you're not aware of.
Absolutely.
Well, my first pick is Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. This is a YA alternate history fiction with a fantastical twist. Essentially, we're in the middle of the Civil War, but it's halted when the soldiers start rising from the dead. And since slavery isn't over now in this timeline, they just change course, really. And now, instead of just being generally enslaved people, Black men and women are being sent to fight these undead and protect the wealthy white white people. We follow our main character, a girl who is sent to a boarding school that teaches young black women how to be acceptable in polite society and ladylike enough to accompany their future owners in public, but fierce enough to combat and protect them as needed from the undead. And it's chilling, but it's amazing. It's action packed, completely insane, emotional, and the sequel in this duology is even better somehow. Like, I was just blown away. Like, I'm afraid to reread it again because it just gave me all of the feels and all the emotions. Highly recommend the audio. I believe this is Bonnie Turpin doing the audio, and she does a fantastic job. Um, Content warning, basically all of them. I mean, pretty much any content warning is going to apply here. It's deep, it's dark, but it's such an interesting look at this. The squares, black rep, BIPOC woman, black historical fiction, and a female author. This would also work really well for complete a series challenge for the year. The sequel is called The Deathless Divide, and again, the sequel's even better somehow. I love this series.
For me. Um, I'm trying to show Rachel on my screen, but I have like background blurred. I
Oh
just checked them
yeah.
both. I just checked them both out. So, okay. So Rachel recommended this to me last year for one of my 24 books for 2024, and I just did not get to it. But on the Book Riot, what is it? Read Harder challenge from Book
Yes.
Riot that Rachel turned me on to. One of the squares is read a the first book in a completed YA or middle grade duology. So she just sold me on that. I just for some reason hadn't gone around to it and I need to because it's everywhere. Like I have it in my library, it's checked out. Like yeah, so I've been seeing it for several years now, so I need to bite the bullet and do it. I'm excited.
And it's so good. And I think beyond just being like such an epic book and so important, it's just a fun thing to give to the kids because how can you not read a book about the Civil War soldiers coming back from the dead? Like, all politicalness aside, like it's just a good book. And I can give this to even my teenage boys. It's centered around a girl, which is a hard sell for those teen boys, but it's zombies. Like, of course they're going to be a civil war. They're interested. It pulls you in.
100%. I'm excited.
Yay! You'll have to tell me how it goes.
Okay. So it's funny before I talk about my next one. Both of mine kind of center around Black trauma. However, this year I'm trying to be really intentional in February about reading Black joy and books celebrating Black characters that aren't going through it, because I feel like yes, those are so 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 important. And ever since like The Hate You Give, there has just been such a flooding of the market of sharing that story, those types of stories, and they 100% need to be shared. However, I've had a lot of my students of color tell me that they don't always want to read the trauma books. They are living that a lot of the times, and they don't necessarily, they want to read to escape. So I am going to be very intentional in February to read more joyful stories featuring Black characters, but this next one is not necessarily that. So I am recommending Dear Manny by Nick Stone. So this is the final book, the third in the series from Dear Martin and Dear Justice. Um, I love Nick every second of every day. I think she is a prolific author that has just really done amazing things in the YA and middle grade genres. And this book was just phenomenal. It follows Jared, who has decided to run against his nemesis for junior class president. But when they're in college, by the way. But when he realizes a third candidate enters the mix, he's thrown for a loop. Jared is white. Let me make that clear because in the other two books, we're following Black male characters. Jarrett is not Black. He is white and attending a school. And it turns out that Dylan M. Coleman, that is running against him, is female, Black, and stunningly gorgeous. Jarrett instantly like falls for her. Okay. Through a class assignment in constitutional law, he gets to know Dylan better. But as the election continues, he realizes that she has secrets, just like he does. Jared is our anti-hero. He really does make a lot of mistakes. He has truly tried to learn from the things like you'll remember Jared if you've read Dear Martin or Dear Justice. And so obviously like he is trying to escape like the white supremacy that he has grown up living in as a wealthy white cisgender het heterosexual male, right? But he still has a long way to go on this journey, and he's trying to make better decisions for his future, but his privilege and his feelings for Dylan are getting in the way. Um, there are honestly no words for how much I enjoyed this novel. I think this whole series is a gift to the young adult readers community. It follows so many different big topics. Obviously, in Dear Martin, you have police brutality and in Dear Justice, it's incarceration is a big theme. And I like that this was set later so that our main characters are now in college. This is one that you could, put in a a library that has young adult books because even though they're in college, it's not necessarily anything super graphic or anything like inappropriate. Jared has had some time to change. He still has a lot of work to do, but I did find myself rooting for him and seeing the kind of human that he wanted to be and where he might be eventually. I think every white teen should read this story, especially right now, because we need to do better. White people, we have to do better. And so this amazing life-changing book releases on March 4th. Content warnings would be sexual assault, physical assault, racism, sexism, classism, arrest, death. It's just recounted grief, loss, alcohol, public intoxication, cheating, DUI, and microaggressions. The squares would be Black Rep, 2025 release. It does have that romance piece to it, female author. And then I finally got one for the yearly challenge. This would be a series to complete. It's a book that's been challenged or banned, and I know it's not out yet, but books one and two have been challenged or banned. So the chances of this one being that are 100% probably likely. And then the author using a pen name. I don't know if y'all know this, but Nick Stone is really Andrea Nicole Livingstone, and she goes by Nick Stone as a writer. So highly recommend this title.
I didn't know that. I need to like abbreviate my name now to come up with a pen name if I could write a
Yeah,
book.
rate
If being the big,
try. Yeah, I'm telling you.
maybe.
I
We'll see.
yeah.
My next book is technically more of like an author, but like I picked one specifically to talk about today, and that's Everything's Trash, but It's Okay by Phoebe Robinson. She is a hilarious Black female comedian, and she's amazing. She has three books out now. They're all essay collections. They're all hilarious. I believe this was the second one, and it's just perfect for this year, sadly, because everything is indeed trash. While Phoebe uses silly words and pop culture references often, much to my enjoyment, mind you, it always works well with the actual substance of each essay. I know that like some people are not going to be into the way that she writes and speaks, but I think it's hilarious. And it's amazing that she can take topics that have such depth and still make them feel light and funny. I think that's just such a skill. She's the best at making meaningful commentary on the world while making you LLOL, aka literally laugh out loud. She's a great blend of being serious and silly, covers feminism, racism, toxic culture, and Bono from U2. You will quickly find that that is her obsession. She is obsessed with Bono. She's silly. Like I said, the way she talks is hilarious. So I would highly recommend this on audio because it's going to feel like she's just sitting down having a little gal chat with you. I think this book would be perfect for a litmus test for your friends. Like if they don't think these are funny, then keep it moving. She's got her own new imprint. I guess it's not technically new anymore, but it's new-ish called Tiny Reparations. So pretty much anything from that imprint is one to look out for. I believe they published her third book under that imprint. Her other books are Please Don't Sit on My Bed in Your Outsized Clothes and You Can't Touch My Hair and Other Things I Still Have to Explain. Content warning for racism, sexism, and toxic culture. And again, I would recommend pretty much anything she writes because she's hilarious.
Okay, okay. So another book that Rachel recommended to me like 2 years ago was Don't Sit on My Bed in Your Outside Clothes, which honestly I think about all the time because like I'll sit down on my bed at the end of the day and that's literally the first thing I think of because what a unique title, right? I think yeah, and I just checked
I'm
out
like that. I will not sit on my bed in my outside clothes. That's a no-no. Like you don't do that.
right?
You don't bring the
Right?
bad germs, juju inside. No.
But I did just check out Everything's Trash, but it's okay. So I'm excited to read that one too. Rachel, I'm sorry, but we can't do this anymore if you're going to keep adding to my TBR, okay? Because I got other things to read, man.
Right. Like I said, this would be perfect to listen to. So, like, I would recommend this if you're like walking and you need something to listen to. If you're driving around, you need something to listen to. I think listening would be the optimal way to take in Phoebe Robinson. So, hopefully, that helps. All right, those are our recommendations for the week. If you have questions, suggestions, or comments, reach out on social media at Books and Bingos or email us at booksandbingos@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and join us again next week when we'll be recommending science fiction books. Happy reading! This week, we will be recommending books by authors or this. Blah, blah. I'm just going to start all over.
Yep,
You're on mute.
love that for me.